Welcome back to Las Vegas. Martin Jacobson and Felix Stevenson just hooked up in a huge hand where Stevenson turned top pair of the kings, but then Jacobson turned over pocket aces. And that has him in second place, and Stevenson working the short stack. Notable chip counts. Van Hoef started 38 million three-handed. He was up to 99 million, currently 95 million. So a lot of fluctuation with all three of these chip counts, and that's just the way these guys play poker. I mean, you could be up 1 minute, down the next, and it is very tough to root for these guys because you better bring the Pepto-Bismol or something.
That's absolutely right.
Van Hoef very swingy during most of this main event. At this final table, he's never been in trouble. He's been in the chip lead almost the entire way. It was Jacobson who was very, very short, and then Stevenson got short, and they've been bouncing back and forth.
Button raised from Van Hoef with pocket deuces. Jacobson folds.
So we're not going to see much calling from Stevenson. He's got the kind of stack where he's going to be going all in or folding.
He says all in with an ace, ace 7.
Wow, this is a really tough spot for Van Hoef because he probably has the best hand with a pair of deuces, but there is no hand where he's not at least flipping with, and if his opponent has an overpair, he's in big trouble. What he doesn't want to do is lose 22 million of his stack and no longer be the chip leader at this final table. But at the same, on the flip side, he wants to win the tournament, and in order to win the tournament, you kind of have to win these flips once in a while. So this is really close.
You see what the player's looking at. Van Hoef scored a knockout of Sindelar, calling with ace tray of hearts last night.
Well, indeed, as Antonio just mentioned, if Van Hoef calls here and loses this, he would yield the chip lead to Martin Jacobson.
And make Stevenson quite a bit stronger. But there's one thing he knows, that it's tough to make a pair.
Yep, but you know, I think he's going to end up folding.
Yeah, he does. And all things considered, the wise move. And Stevenson takes a few chips off the chip leader. So the Norwegian fighting for his country, as all three are. Felix Stevenson up to 26.1 million now. But he was all over the leaderboard last night. Started with 32 million this final table, and that was good for second place. Continuing the action, three-handed. The button folds, so back to Stevenson. Not much change in the options for him at this point, even though he's got a couple million more.
Yeah, pretty much the same stack. I mean, here he can call when he's getting such a good price in the small blind, but I think that Van Hoef will probably keep pressure on him from the big blind. If he raises here, it's pretty hard for Stevenson to continue. It's going to be check, you know, it's going to be check raise all. I mean, come over the top all in or basically fold.
And Van Hoef checks his option with queen 9. Stevenson jack tray suited. Ace 7-7 misses them both. No spades out there, no pairs that match the player's hole cards. Stevenson has the action.
The only way Stevenson can win this pot is by leading out here. He can't really check raise because it's committing too much of his stack. He's in a pretty bad spot here. His only shot is to lead out. And Van Hoef, he's a pretty sharp guy. I mean, it's pretty hard for Stevenson to have an ace or a 7 here. So I think there's a reasonable chance he's going to call here just on the flop, just to float, exactly what we were talking about earlier. And then it's very hard for Stevenson to give it another barrel. So I think we'll see a float here. Nope. Wow.
A fold. And so it'll be Stevenson collecting a few more chips. Every step forward is a good step. And there's the cowbell. Been waiting for the cowbell. That's a standard in all European sports, from skiing to cycling, skating. So Stevenson will stack those winnings up to 27.7 million. Still a lot of work to be done for the Norwegian.
He's lived in London 3 years, has not played a single hand of poker in a London casino. He just is an online guy.
He's been working on his no-limit tournament game during the break, and you see this is a combined time action last night and tonight. Almost 13 hours of play so far. The final table.
3.6.
Stevenson folded his button. Hjort with a raise to 2.6 million with Jack-6 of hearts.
I think he verbally said 3.6. I don't know if it's 2.6
Is that right?
or 3.6.
That's very possible.
It doesn't seem like the right raise with Jack-6 of hearts in the small blind to 2.6.
Yeah, no, that's 3.6 out there. And a call from Jacobson with ace-9 of diamonds. And there is an ace. Jacobson with top pair. And a 6 for Van Hoff. Van Hoof, excuse me.
So Van Hoof was the pre-flop aggressor. He's flopped the pair. You know, I think he's going to check call for sure at a minimum. So if he's going to check call, he might as well lead out.
4.8 million.
And the reason why leading out is strong is because you're not really worried about your opponent raising you. The only hand he can really raise you with is a 2-pair hand. He can never raise you with a 1-pair hand. That just wouldn't make any sense. You wouldn't want to create a bigger pot only to lose with a potential 1-pair kind of hand. And so with an ace in his hand or even with a king in his hand, you're always just going to call here in position. You don't want to give up that power.
Jacobson, of course, with chips in hand. Once again, the leadership of this final table in the balance with the top 2 stacks. Just a call. Turn card now. Another king of hearts. And so now Hjort with a flush draw.
Flush draw and a pair, but he probably doesn't think that his pair is any good. Now that he picked up the flush draw, he's almost never folding. He doesn't really want to just check call, but he also doesn't want to bet. It's kind of a tricky spot.
He does check it over to Jacobson. Jacobson seems very focused on those hearts right now.
Yeah, I think Jacobson will check behind. The king is not the best card for Jacobson. If he bets here and gets raised, now he's really in a bind. So I think he'll just, exercise some good pot control and check behind here and then play the card on the river, play the hand on the river.
A paired board, couple of hearts out there as well. So warning bells going off in Martin's head. And what about the strategy of trying to shed Van Hoff right here with 9 million?
So Jacobson just thinks he has the best hand, and he's going for it. Pretty strong bet, in my opinion. You're not getting called by much worse, so I don't personally love the bet. I'd probably almost always just check back and play the pot on the river. There really aren't that many bad cards. I mean, unless my opponent picked up a runner flush draw, but if that happens, it happens. What I don't want to do is bet 9 million and get raised. That would be disgusting.
And Van Hoof has that in him.
I mean, we've seen Van Hoof capable of a lot of different plays. I don't see Van Hoof just calling here out of position. If he misses, he's in a kind of a tight spot. His 6 might be good, even though he doesn't think it's good. He doesn't want to call with just a flush, basically. It's one of those spots where I think he's going to be done with the hand, or this is the moment that he goes for it.
Van Hoof with 4 hearts to the flush, and he does give it up. Not worth his chips, as Jacobson now has the chip lead in the main event, three-handed with almost 89 million. He has climbed to the top of the mountain. It is incredible.
About midway through last night's final table play, he was down to 7 big blinds. From 7 big blinds now to chip leader. Wow.
And he knows what to do with the chip lead. He is a player trying to break through. He's had a lot of close finishes, but never a huge breakthrough victory. And now, perhaps this is a moment. Jorrit Van Hof suddenly with just 84 million in second place. He did give up the chip lead a time or two to Stevenson once, to Tonking a couple of times in yesterday's play. Always fought his way back into the chip lead. So he is a very confident player. He is certainly a little upset he's given up the chip lead, but he knows enough to stay cool and has the skills to get it back. A raise to 2.6 million with King Deuce off suit. Now to Stevenson, the short stack, with 27.5 million entering the hand.
Oh, he's moving all in with fives for sure. Any pair three-handed, by the way, is a monster, especially when you can be the last aggressor.
And he's all in. He announces it with King Deuce. Van Hof gives it up immediately, leaking chips right and left is the former chip leader. Stevenson over 31 million. We mentioned this was anyone's ball game. Right now, Jacobson is the one in control. We welcome you back to the 2014 World Series of Poker Main Event Final Table Telecast presented by Gentleman Jack. We have a new chip leader in the house. It is Martin Jacobson with 88.1 million. Jorrit Van Hof with 81.3, and that man Felix Stevenson with 31.1. Continue three-handed.
Last night, Van Hof never fell below 76 big blinds. He's now at 67 big blinds, still in very good shape, but this is his lowest point of the final table.
Ace-6 of spades, a button raise from Jacobson to 2.7 million. And Van Hof will give it up, and Jacobson will win it. He talked to us earlier about the importance of being mentally and physically ready to play.
Yeah, well, I always try to stay in good physical and mental shape. But since I made the final table, that's something I prioritize even more. Just because I think it's going to have a huge impact on something that's stressful as the final table.
Yeah, he lifts weights for the last 12 years, usually 3 to 5 times a week. He's really big on strength and conditioning. He uses all sorts of equipment, kettlebells, battle ropes, also some body weight exercises. And actually, before he became a poker player full-time, he thought about becoming a personal trainer. Martin Jacobson loves to treat his body very, very well.
Van Hof as well actually has a business, a startup business that provides trainers and yoga teachers to people who need them.
That's a front for numbers running or guns running. Provide yoga teachers for people who needs them?
It's a startup. People,
that's so transparent. He's running a dice game in the back of that joint.
Jack 10 of diamonds. Stevenson on the button with a raise to 2.6 million. And as you mentioned before, Antonio, the button is so important anytime in poker. Three-handed, you love position. And you see a lot of raises from the button. And now a 3-bet from Van Hof with Queen 7 of diamonds.
One of these poker players become all yoga and meditation, by the way. You know, back in the day, it was fast cars and Ripple.
And so one should notice the bet sizing of Van Hof. He's made it about 8 million every time he's had a real hand, and this is the first time he's 3-bet light with Queen 7, and he's made it to 6.2 million. So I actually like it because it looks a little deceiving. It looks like he actually has a real hand.
So he had bet bigger, actually, earlier when he had a real hand.
Right, and now all of a sudden he comes in betting smaller. To me, it does look fishy. So if I'm sitting in Stevenson's seat, you know, I don't love it. But Stevenson is getting a pretty decent price to see the flop. The problem is he doesn't have that many chips.
Yeah, Jack 10 suited, it's pretty.
So this is one of those spots where he's going with it if he hits any part of that flop. If he flops a straight draw, any pair, you know, any 2 diamonds, and he's just looking for any reason to get his chips in the pot.
He called, and we'll find out. Stevenson's Jack 10 against the Queen 7 of diamonds. No red cards.
So this will go to Van Hof because he's always going to lead here. There's no way he's just going to let 14 million chips go. He'll lead out, Stevenson will fold, and that'll be the end of this hand.
That seems so sad.
Right?
We saw it a lot yesterday. And one of the guys who was able to climb out of that rut was Billy Pappas, and under 8 million, 7 million chips, and you just saw the way he folded. It's like, oh, I'm giving up, giving up. And he finally turned things around. He got a couple cards, and he ended, got up into third place at one point and was feeling good, and finally eliminated in fifth place. The foosball king winning over 2.1 million, and here is the bet from Van Hoof, 6.8 million. Stevenson.
Now, if Stevenson finds a shove here, I will work at McDonald's for a year.
Oh, wow. You phrased that nicely.
So you now have avoided having to buy Phil Hellmuth's book, and you've avoided having to work at McDonald's for a year, and that would have been a reality show, sir.
I could do it. I think I could do it.
Well, restacking the chips. A very tight race between 1 and 2 right now. It's been quite an interesting final table as you look. 244 hands played Monday night. Mark Newhouse heartbreakingly goes out of 9th place in back-to-back years. Right now is Van Hoof and Jacobsen battling for the chip lead, and Stevenson nursing the short stack. And both of these guys, Jacobsen and Stevenson, have nursed short stacks at this final table, but still find themselves among the final 3. This gentleman came in as the chip leader and is right up there still. Jack 5 offsuit on the button to raise to 2.6 million.
No, I love the way Jacobsen plays. He doesn't waste any time. A lot of pros will, literally take time when they don't have a decision. And when he's got a clear fold, he just does it. Personally, I like to take 10 seconds for every decision, which I think is a reasonable amount of time. I don't want to go over that. But I always want my opponents to think that I'm thinking about maybe doing something.
Stevenson calls 9-8. Stevenson needs to find something in the flop, and there is top pair.
Yeah, it's a fantastic flop for 9-8. You flop top pair. This is just a check raise, check shove scenario. Van Hoof can't check behind. He has to fire. There's 6.4 million chips out there. So again, we'll see a bet, shove, fold, next hand.
Gets pretty cocky after a few years of this, doesn't he?
He knows what he's doing, particularly when he's in here. I mean, I don't know why he doesn't have more success out on the actual felt.
Oh, a check.
His reads are so good here. Boy, the check is a surprise.
Wow. I don't love that check at all.
And,
wow, now.
Yeah, a 5 now for Van Hoof.
That's really good for Stevenson. I mean, he might actually get some money out of this pot. Stevenson
with the pair of 9s, top pair, and second pair for Van Hoof now.
By the way, something is to be said. Van Hoof might have picked something up from Stevenson. Stevenson
we thought he did yesterday.
Stevenson had a great read on Stevenson yesterday, and so if Van Hoof thought Stevenson actually connected with that flop, that was a fantastic check.
Well, we'll find out, I think, right now, because if he actually folds here after hitting second pair on the turn, then he has picked up something.
4 million from Stevenson it is.
Yeah, I mean, if he folds, he'll just be the greatest poker player in the history of the world. I mean, when you have a second pair with so much money out there and position, you have to call, especially given the flop action. I will be so impressed if he finds a fold here. I know I could never find a fold here. I'm always calling just to see what happens on the river. There's also a lot of great bluff cards for Van Hoof if he's behind.
He does make the call. Stevenson so far happy about that. River card now is the king of clubs, a third club out there, and a big overcard.
So I should slow Stevenson down to put the flush out there. A king is out there. Really, he doesn't want to bet and get raised. I think it's just he's probably gonna check and call. Although he's not really worried about the flush, given that Van Hoof checked back the flop. So he doesn't really put him on a flush draw.
If you were with us last night, you heard that the players were intense. They were certainly serious. Tonight, there's a different tenor in the room. I mean, it is big money. It is big prestige. very much more serious. Every action has such big ramifications for all three players.
I'm all in.
Look at this. Wow.
Wow, this is pretty gutsy. I mean, you know, I don't think that he thinks he's bluffing. I think that he's going for value. That's what I think. And I think it's a fantastic, courageous value bet. You might get your opponent to call you with the worst hand. I think it's very risky. I don't know if the reward warrants the risk.
But what's the count?
Very courageous.
Is this preferable to making the small value bet and getting raised and then having to make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, it takes that problem away. You don't have to, you know, make that big decision there. But I think I just like check calling better on the river. Just because if I get called here, if I get snap called, first of all, I'm dead. I also take away any bluffs that my opponent had. Let's say that Van Hoof actually had hearts or a straight draw or something like that. You now take that away. If you put him on the exact hand that he has, then I love it. So it really just goes down to what Stevenson thought Van Hoof actually had.
The smaller stack now has the bigger stack twisting himself in knots trying to figure out what is happening in this hand.
Right, I mean, his story doesn't really make any sense either. If Stevenson had a 9 here, it doesn't make sense for him to go all in, right? Because the club just came out. So really what he's representing is a flush.
And Stevenson feels fine with that at this point, I'd imagine.
Yeah, at this point, he likes his hand. I mean, it was just one of those spots where, look, if you got me, you got me. If not, I'm going for maximum value. And he probably does have the best hand in his mind.
Now it's up to Jort Van Hoof to try to figure this out, make his optimal decision, not only for this hand, but for future hands.
He hasn't made these decisions wrong. You know, he made one call last night where he was wrong on the river. But besides that, he's been pretty good at knowing when to get away from it, especially when he's been in pots against Stevenson.
I thought he was going to throw that chip. He does make the call. Oh, my goodness. Stevenson turns over the pair of 9s, and the 5s are no good and are going to cost Jort, and cost Jort in a big way. Stevenson doubled through Jort Van Hoof late in last night's action to get him to 44 million, and another double up through the Dutch poker pro has Felix Stevenson very healthy once again. A lot of surprises in that hand. Bottom line, Felix Stevenson with a big double up has found new life. We are still three-handed. World Series of Poker main event final table telecast is presented by Gentleman Jack. People celebrate Veterans Day in a variety of ways. In Fort Collins, Colorado, they play poker for a veterans charity underwater, where I guess, gentlemen, you would find plenty of fish at the table. Sorry about that. Here we are, three-handed. Martin Jacobson is the leader with 88.1 million. Thanks to that last double up by Stevenson. There's some room between 1 and 2, and don't count out Stevenson. This is still good.
Absolutely not. That pot was actually fantastic for Jacobson. He now moved into the leaderboard, and that's exactly what he wants. He doesn't want one opponent with a lot of chips. He'd rather have 2 opponents with shorter stacks.
And I said I was waiting to see what Van Hoof does once he takes a punch. That wasn't a knockdown punch, but now he is at his lowest stead. We'll see how he reacts.
Jacobson with queens on the button. A raise to 2.7 million. Stevenson folded, and we'll see how much tilt there is inside this Dutch pro's body.
He doesn't come across to me as the same Van Hoof that he was yesterday. Yesterday it was so intimidating and so on point.
Ace on the flop might slow them both down.
You know, if you walk around all day long, assuming the other guy hit an ace. Okay, you're going to be selling pencils on the beach. The ace should not slow down Jacobson, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and I don't think it will. You know, a lot of players, they play and they always complain about an ace flopping when they have an underpair. But just because an ace flops doesn't mean your opponent has one. It's actually unlikely that he has one because there's one on the board.
I mean, you're always going to have an underpair to the ace pretty much, unless you have aces. So that's the way life is. And most of the time when an ace comes onto the board, it does not hit your opponent.
Great. You guys done?
To be continued.
Okay.
Why do you think we have 3 bracelets between us? We know what we're talking about.
$3 million from Jacobson. Not worried about the ace with his pocket queens.
No, if he gets raised, I'd be worried about the ace. No.
One folds. And it's relentless. I mean, Von Hoff cannot call timeout. He can't take a break. He can't throw a red flag and protest. He's got to sit here and take it with the blinds coming around so quickly, with the blows coming right and left, trying to fend off these Scandinavians.
Chris Bjorn, the most successful Swede at the World Series of all time, made the World Series main event final table in 1997, and then in the 2000s, 3 straight years, 3 straight Swedes got there. Matthias Andersson in 04, Daniel Bergstad in 05, Eric Freiberg in 06, or Eric Freiberg in 06. Martin Jacobson going to have the best result of all of them, and he might win it all.
And Jacobson will take that with a walk.
Yes, he will. I mean, when you're the chip leader, people don't really want to go after your big blind, and so it's a really good spot to be in, obviously, just because, you know, people don't want to raise your blind because you're more likely to call.
And you have to appreciate what he has done, especially if you were with us yesterday, and we chronicled his every move up the leaderboard, and it was like he had his legs cut out from under him, and he drops back, and then he built up again. He had his legs cut out from him a couple of times.
So many times, but he showed such resilience and such patience. It was really impressive to watch how he went about the hands that he was dealt yesterday. I mean, I don't think he almost didn't make a single mistake all day.
Von Hoff raises 7-5 off on the button. I think only Jacobson has folded his button. I'm not sure the other two have. And they saw Jacobson fold one button.
Yeah.
To Stevenson. He makes the call. Jacobson had folded. So heads up, it's 7-5 against King Deuce for Stevenson. A couple of aces and a 7 out there. And so 2 pair for Von Hoff.
Stevenson might get into some trouble here just because his king high is, you know, a lot of times the best hand here on this flop.
Check from Stevenson, and Van Hoff
2.4
says 2.4 million.
I think we'll see a call from Stevenson. I know I would call. But then again, I'm not a wizard. I'm just an old seasoned veteran pro.
Yeah, you're you know, you're closer to 50 than you are to 21. I know you turn 36 next month. It's a shame. And Lon, tell him what happens when you turn 50.
I don't remember. That was.
Why do you guys hurt me? You just enjoy my youth.
There is the call. 8 of clubs on the turn, and the 7s and aces on the board. Best for Urit.
That's a pretty dry board on the flop of ace a7 with no flush draws. Given that Von Hoff bet and got called out of position, you know, he doesn't love his 7. So I don't really see him betting again here, just because if he's beat, he's beat. Why put more chips into the pot?
Check.
Check, check. Queen of spades. And so the pair of 7s with the aces on board. Best for Von Hoff. What Norman was alluding to is you can play in the senior tour. Senior event at the World Series of Poker.
Yeah.
When you're 50 years old. Stevenson checks again.
I mean, I don't think this is a value town kind of spot. He's either up against a 7 with a bigger kicker or a king-high hand like this. There's really not a ton of other hands that he could be up against. So probably a check back, in my opinion. Unless you really want to put the heat on. You know, he knows that Stevenson doesn't have an ace, the way he played it. Check, call, check, check. So if he had an ace, he would have heard about it. So if you think your opponent has a 7, there's a chance you can get him to fold. You know, your kicker is not very good with the 5. Well, you chop with the queen, actually. So if you want to get him off a chop, you might want to make a big bet here.
Van Hoof taking his time with decisions tonight. There is the check, and he will take the pot with a pair of 7s that he flopped, along with the 2 aces out there. And you're right, I don't think he seems himself, if last night was himself, a little unsteady, maybe unsure of himself here this evening.
Right. Yesterday he just seemed a lot more confident in every decision and every play that he made. Today it's not the same Van Hoof that we saw last night. But his hair is still just unbelievable.
Not one really out of place. They all seem to work in tandem with each other. It's like the synchronized swimming of hair.
Been a lot of poker played over the last couple of days. Taken quite a toll on a number of people, and you just wear down, and you start to make bad decisions. You saw the running clock of over 13 hours of poker, and it takes a sharp mind, it takes a sharp body, and the way that these guys are working out, eating right, and you know, doing what old school poker players never did.
Yeah, it used to be cigarettes and pizza and burgers and cigars, and now it's yoga and meditation and fruit juices.
They're raising the bar.
When I'm around you and Danny Negreanu and watching this whole new metrosexual approach to poker, it dismays me.
A shove from. Oh, Ray, did he say? No, he didn't say 3 million. I'm sorry. I thought he said all in. But no.
Yeah, Stevenson called the small blind, and Van Hoof raised it to 3 million. Stevenson can't really call with this hand out of position and play, or he can.
He will try.
I just don't love calling here. My hand is pretty weak. I'm up against a bigger stack. Out of position. I just don't like it.
Ace-8 against 9-6.
That's a double, gentlemen. So Stevenson needs a 4 or an 8 to make a straight. So he is loving this flop right now. He'd love to check raise this flop.
Double gutter is what he's talking about. Double gut shot straight draw for this man, Felix Stevenson, who keeps knocking on the door of big stack territory, but can't quite work his way past the barrier. A bet of 4.3 million.
By the way, Van Hoof can't fold here. I mean, if I have ace-8 suited and I was the pre-flop raiser and the small blind leads into me on a 3-5-7 board, I'm always going to call here in position just to see what happens on the turn. I could pick up a spade. I could pick up a straight draw. I might have the best hand. An ace is good. An 8 is good. Well, I think an 8 is good.
You think an 8's good.
So you just can't fold in this spot. I mean, this is for sure a call.
Van Hoof from Eindhoven, Netherlands. He's also lived in Dublin and Malta to play poker. Finally moved back into London, where he had lived also previously. He picked up poker during the moneymaker years after 2003 and had to learn the hard way as he makes the call.
What's the hard way?
Losing a lot of money and learning along the way, and at some point he turned the corner. And there is a 4, so a straight for Stevenson as his double gutter comes through.
That is a heck of a card, boys.
And a spade on the board, and so a nut flush draw for Van Hoof.
That is an action card. Stevenson knows he has the nuts. Van Hoof, you know, has picked up a straight draw, and he's picked up the nut flush draw, and he has position. If Stevenson leads into him, which I think he will, given that he bet the flop and got there on the turn.
Is he going to get tested?
He doesn't want to check and get checked behind, so I think he's going to lead out, and then Van Hoof will probably just call.
8.5.
If my opponent has a 6 here, I don't want to risk raising, and then I get it all in. If I miss the river, my tournament is in jeopardy. So if he's bluffing, it's going to be pretty hard for him to continue again on the river if I call him here on the turn. But then again, Stevenson is showing aggression. He's showing strength.
And you see the stack sizes right above Stevenson's head, and his stack can do a lot of damage to Van Hoof's stack.
He does have a pretty big draw. I think it really just gets down to, you know, putting a read on your opponent and deciding if he's strong or weak. If you think he's strong, then you just call. If you think he's weak, you could raise.
Oh man, there is the call as the pot builds to over 32 million, and this will be a very interesting river card. And it is another 4. And so the straight remains the hand, but it does pair the board. And Stevenson with the best of it.
And he's going to take down this pot one way or the other. And Van Hoof, who's been big man on campus for so long, for most of these 13 hours, is suddenly going to be the short stack.
Well, as it stands right here, Van Hoof will be left with 50 million if he can get away unscathed on the river. And look at this. It takes 2 hands to make that bet from Felix Stevenson with all those oversized red chips. Yeah, it looks like Jorrit has already decided. I'm going to have to fight from the bottom up again. 15.5 million. What a series of events. And our leaderboard has been turned upside down in this first level of play here, 3-handed. And so Van Hoof trying to noodle this out. And put yourself in the Dutchman's position here. I mean, is there any chance that ace-8 is good here?
I mean, there's always a chance. Just because Stevenson led the flop, right, led the turn, and now fires the river, you know, every card changes the dynamic of what you think your opponent has, because certain cards make players play differently, right? If this card comes, I'm going to do A. If, you know, this card comes, I'm going to do B. And so Stevenson here showed aggression on the flop, on the turn, and on the river. So really the only hand he could have here is probably a 6. If he had a 2 pair, he probably would not have bet it so strong on the turn, just because if he gets raised, he's in a tough spot. Most people would probably check 2 pair there on the turn. So really it comes down to Stevenson having a 6 or a stone cold bluff. And in this case, he happens to have the 6. So Van Hoof is just trying to go through the process of the hands that he could potentially beat. You know, he just doesn't seem too confident in himself right now.
I was very surprised when he called Felix's all in when Felix had the pair of 9s. I would be surprised times 5 if he finds a call here with ace high.
You know, he just made that pretty bad, well, it ended up being a pretty bad call, but theoretically sometimes it's a good call with the 5s. And
you're supposed to learn from that, and now he's here in the same situation.
Yeah, exactly. If he calls here and, you know, well, he will lose, I just don't like his chances after that. If you make 2 big bad calls like this on the final table in a row,
it's a bad spiral.
It's just it's a mayday.
North Van Hoof being tested. And again, the repercussions are huge for all three. And there is the fold. He hates to fold that, but it was the correct fold, leaving those chips behind. Van Hoof, the third place stack. Stevenson in second place with 58.6. Jacobson still top dog with almost 92 million. And you can see the former chip leader, the former Dutch pro who was so strong in control, having problems now. The 2014 World Series of Poker is presented by Gentleman Jack Tennessee Whiskey, the Order of Gentlemen, and in part by the WSOP Circuit Tour. First the ring, then the bracelet. For the official schedule and events in your area, visit WSOP.com. Welcome back. Let's get it down to Kara Scott for a report from the floor. Kara?
Felix Stevenson was primarily a pot limit Omaha player before this tournament. He told me he knew that he would have to give up playing PLO entirely for 4 months in order to focus on this variant of the game, Texas Hold'em. Now, he doesn't have as much experience at Texas Hold'em as the other two, but he told me his edge comes from not really making mistakes. It's a good edge to have. He says he doesn't mind folding a hand when he knows he's behind, and also he doesn't get thrown off his guard when a player re-raises him over and over and over again, and that's a good skill to have when you have the chip leader like Van Hoof to your left for 2 days.
Thank you, Kara. World Series of Poker Europe has been announced. It's going to be in Berlin, Germany next October. We've been in London. We've been in the south of France. We've been just outside Paris. So heading to Germany for the World Series of Poker Europe.
That is fantastic news. I've never been to Germany. It's during October. Maybe there's Oktoberfest going on.
Well, there's the Wall. The Wall is a great place to go to.
That's fantastic news.
The Wall is down, Norman.
Oh.
Queen 8 off for both Van Hoof and Jacobson. The flop missed them both.
2.5 million.
Bet 2.5.
Yeah, we'll just see a call here from Jacobson. He has position. He has a gut shot to make a straight. He has an overcard. At a minimum, we'll see a call. And by the way,
you can see the percentages. It pretty much a top pot if it's shown down.
Right. Jacobson is very confident. He's all of a sudden, you know, the overwhelming chip leader. He has position on Van Hoof. He's absolutely loving his situation right now.
And you can sense when the former big dog is faltering a little bit, and that's a time to pounce, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, here you could either call or you could raise. I think there's justifications for both.
Or fold.
Or fold. I wouldn't have folded, but.
So with the same hand, Van Hoof's aggression will take that pot. Good to see him smiling, and you don't want to send him down into an emotional spiral. And get him back on his game. He is fun to watch. This is quite a battle between these three. The predictor of success for the chip leader. You see how they fared coming in, and still Van Hoof for the chance. Come in first, go out first, but it's only happened once in recent history. Jonathan Duhamel in 2010.
Van Hoof might want to remember what he read in Jared Tendler's Mental Game of Poker. I don't read strategy books myself because I don't think my game can get any better. I do read other books that I did want to mention to a couple of people, that a couple other poker books this year that I think you should take a look at. The Moneymaker Effect, Eric Raskin, The Oral History of the 2003 Main Event, and then the man who brought the World Series to Las Vegas, Benny Binion. There was a biography this year called Blood Aces, The Wild Ride of Benny Binion by Doug J. Swanson. You read about Benny Binion and you go, wow, what a life. And he did some things that are not so good. 2 good reads on the poker bookshelf this year.
And the history of the World Series of Poker tied in with Benny Binion, and quite a fascinating story it is. And there's a lot of stories out there, I'm sure, that have not yet been told. Jacobson just calls, and Stevenson is going to raise it up to $4 million with 5 tray of hearts. Van Hoof folded the button. And so now Stevenson starting to feel his oats a little bit.
I mean, Jacobson has played this pretty tricky. He limped in the small blind with an ace. You know, in any kind of a heads-up spot, given that Van Hoof has folded the button, an ace is probably the best hand. So a lot of players will bring it in for a raise here. I love limping just because it's so tricky. Stevenson has no idea that Jacobson has an ace in his hand at this point. But now he's playing out of position, and if he doesn't connect, it's hard for him to follow through. This is a fantastic flop for Stevenson.
Stevenson,
open-ender.
Open-ender there. But it is still Jacobson with the ace high holding the best hand. But open-enders generally get chips into the pot.
Bet $5 million.
You heard the dealer. $5 million.
Yeah, this is the only problem with this hand when you play it this way. Although I think that it's correct to do it this way and also play it the other way, where you just bring it in for a raise and take aggression of the pot. So you kind of have to have a nice balance of both plays. But this is the problem you run into when you take this route.
And there is the fold, and Stevenson getting healthier with every card dealt, it seems.
So this is how kooky poker is, as we just heard Kara mention. Felix is an online pot limit Omaha cash game specialist who plays virtually no limit hold'em online or live. And then the only World Series tournament he plays this year is the main event, the biggest live no limit hold'em tournament in the world, and he might end up winning it.
It is a crazy game. That is Norman Chat. I'm Lon McCarron with Antonio Esfandiari. Kara Scott out there as well. We hope you are enjoying this action. 30-minute delay only. Cards face up when a player commits chips to the pot. We are three-handed. The winner of this three-handed championship table wins $10 million. A gold bracelet worth over $500,000 and the title the world champion. Jacobson with 7 deuce off on the button with the raise, and Van Hoof coming along with Queen 8. Queen 8 is best.
Van Hoof has the 8.
I'm sorry, with a deuce, pair of deuces. I'm sorry, yep. Thank you, Antonio.
I'm here to serve. Norman's not doing much.
He knew that too.
What can I get you?
So a check from Stevenson. Van Hoof.
You know, this is a little different. You know, earlier when he had the ace deuce with the bottom pair, I think it was a clear bet. But given that he checked back the big blind here, it's really not so clear. I think you could definitely check it back. You could also bet it. I think it goes either way.
4 of clubs. Van Hoof still best with the deuces.
So typically Stevenson has led the turn when his opponent has checked back behind on the flop.
Check.
Not this time.
So the sunglasses are off from Jort Van Hoof.
Check.
And he checks back. Maybe a bit superstitious about them.
No, he might have been one of his people who were listening on a 30-minute delay, heard Antonio tell him, don't change anything from yesterday. You made a mistake, and maybe he took him off. And he wasn't running real well or making good decisions with those shades on.
So the pair of deuces are best. And let's see how Stevenson proceeds. A check again. I mean, the best thing for him would be at least to get something on the ledger, and he does check back, and he will take the pot with the best hand, and he's got to feel good about stacking chips once again.
Not a whole lot to stack.
No.
But you're right. Just anything to get forward motion, some momentum, and a little smile back on the face.
Jort won over $120,000 during 2 events during the break at a London poker series. And then last Friday, he won $627. at the Aria nightly tournament for $125.
How could he fleece the locals and the tourists at a $100 buy-in tournament when he's playing for $10 million?
Keep the mind sharp. Keep it sharp. He's a poker freak. Stevenson with the button and first to act.
Raise, $3 million.
Stevenson raises to $3 million with Queen 5. Again, for you poker novices, we talked about this last night. Don't try this at home. You're seeing shorthanded final table action. These are not typical starting hands in No Limit Hold'em. And certainly if you're going down and you're going to play Yort at the $100 nightly round 1, these are not round 1 starting hands even. But the value of these hands increases as the table gets shorter. And here is a raise for Van Hoof to $8 million with 10 tray of clubs.
Well, he's got some pep in his stepping again, and maybe again he's picked up weakness, as Antonio mentioned, on Felix Stevenson.
It certainly feels like he's starting to get his mojo back a little bit. You know, sometimes when you 3-bet, it just really puts your opponent in a corner. I mean, it's very hard for Stevenson to continue without a premium hand. And given that he's raising a lot of his buttons, you know, sometimes you have to do it with 10-3 suited.
And these guys are allowing some of that mo back into the Dutch Pro's corner. They just is deciding not to fight back against him. He has rebuilt his stack to $57.7 million. You see that Stevenson is just a few $100,000 ahead of him with $58.2 million.
Well, it's really anybody's game at this point.
Button on Van Hoof. The valuable position.
Raise, 2.6.
2.6 million. And you just have to have so much inside of you, so much fortitude to be able to play at this level, three-handed. And it gets even dicier heads up.
I mean, if you really think about what's at stake, you know, nobody remembers second or third. It's like a presidential election. They only remember the winner. You win the greatest, biggest tournament in the history of the world, or you're the guy that almost won the greatest, biggest tournament in the history of the world.
Right.
And you have to live with that forever.
Who was runner-up last year? See?
Jay Farber was.
Takes you a moment.
You're talking to me?
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I was trying to prove Antonio's point.
Flush draw for Van Hoof. Stevenson checks his Jack-8 of diamonds.
Check.
And they both check. Another ace. Who could forget Jay Farber's guns and tattoos? Muscles, I mean by the guns.
Check.
Not to mention the constant petting of his rail, Dan Blazarian's hair. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Check.
Check, check. The second ace and the 10 of clubs. And so a pair of 10s for Van Hoof. And the ace is on board. The best hand. Stevenson has the action. He's not been voluntarily putting any chips in the pot here post-flop. Nor pre-flop. A lot of danger out there.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, Stevenson showed so much weakness. You have to bet.
$4 million. Fold.
You have to go for some value.
Yeah, before the chips went in, Stevenson did fold, and I tell you, York has found his way once again. And so, three-handed here when we are nine-handed. A stunning moment last night when Mark Newhouse tried to run a big bluff on the river against Will Tonking, who called with his pocket queens to bust Mark Newhouse in ninth place for the second straight year. And now, as we went through, there was some amazing play, amazing calls, and now we are three-handed with Jacobsen, Stevenson, and Van Hoof. But the Mark Newhouse bust out just had everybody's jaw drop.
Raise 2.7.
Still, his back-to-back ninth-place finishes against those fields. As time goes by, we'll look back and go, that just didn't happen, did it?
Absolutely. No, I totally agree.
It remains the #1 main event achievement from what I can see.
Indeed, it really does. Jacobsen raised on the button with King 9. Gets a call from Stevenson. Stevenson with Ace-7 of hearts.
And remember, Stevenson called in the small blind, so that changes the dynamic of his range, and obviously Jacobsen knows this. Out of the big blind, you're getting a much better price to call with almost any 2 cards. In the small blind, you're not getting as good a price, and so your range requirement definitely shifts towards the better side. In other news,
9 million?
9 million.
Re-raised to 9 million.
With Ace-10, Van Hoof feels his time has come back around again.
Well, it has.
it's just one of those spots where Van Hoof just feels that his Ace-10 is the best hand, and there's so much money out there. He's not really worried about Stevenson, right? And Jacobsen's range on the button is all, can be any 2 cards. So as long as Jacobsen didn't really wake up with a big hand, he's going to win the pot almost 90 out of 100 times. Again, Stevenson just called in the small blind, so he's not worried about Stevenson. He's really only worried about Jacobsen.
Do you want to get mixed up three-handed here with King 9?
No, but, it also looks suspicious just because, Jacobsen obviously knows that Van Hoof knows there's all this money out there, that Stevenson is not really a factor in this hand. But I don't think he's getting involved here. It's just too much to risk. But if he happened to put in another raise here, he's a big favorite to just win the pot. As pretty as Ace-10 is, it can't be good here if you get re-raised.
He does give it up. So now to Stevenson with Ace-7 of hearts. Do you ever take into consideration that your opponent is on a bit of a rush and they've been stacking pot after pot after pot?
Yeah, look, momentum, plays into effect. Van Hoof has been playing good and running good in the last couple of rounds. That goes into effect for sure. Where it's not the 30-minute delay, so he doesn't know that he just did it with 10-3 a couple of hands before yet.
Van Hoof, just a little while ago, was down to 50 million. His stack now increases by 1/3 the last few hands. He's up to 67 million.
And so he looking to become the first Dutch world champion of poker. As we take a look back at the best Dutch finishes at the main event, Marcel Loos, 10th place heartbreakingly in 04. Michiel Brummelhaus went to the final table last year, and he's a good friend. It goes way back with Jorrit, and now Van Hoof trying to become the first world champion, and he has already secured the best finish for a Dutch player.
And I have to apologize to Marcel Loos for not even mentioning him till now. He deserves all our respect, and we miss him when he's not here.
Jacobsen will take it in a walk. Always good to see Marcel around the World Series of Poker. Always has some idea to improve the game, improve the rules. He is concerned. He loves the game, and he wants to try to make it better for everyone. And that's the one thing that really stands out about Marcel Loos to me. So Jacobsen with 81.9 million. Van Hoof back in second place. Quite a leap ahead of Stevenson now. Just a short time ago, as you mentioned, Norman, Van Hoof the short stack. Van Hoof with the button has folded already. Now Jacobsen.
Call.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of the three-handed we had 2 years ago. They act a little faster, but with Greg Merson, Jesse Sylvia, and Jake Balsiger, who just really acquitted themselves really well. A long, long period of time. Very few major mistakes, hardly any major mistakes. This three-handed play reminds me of that in terms of the quality of play and how they handle themselves.
That did go 399 hands on the final table, too. You remember that.
I'm still in therapy regarding that. Why did you bring it up?
Stevenson with a raise with Queen Jack offsuit to 4 million. Jacobson just hoping to see a cheap flop, and yeah, that's just not part of the game right now.
No, I mean, if you have Queen Jack in position and your opponent has shown weakness by just limping in, I mean, you just have to raise. You probably have the best hand, and you know, you get to play in position for the rest of the hand. You're trying to win a big pot, so it's just a clear raise. Now, something to think about is, remember, they're on a 30-minute delay, so Jacobson by this point probably knows that Stevenson just did this with 5-3 in the big blind a little while ago. So it's definitely going through his thought process. But 5-7 is just not the kind of hand where you want to defend for 3.4 million more out of position.
And Stevenson will take it with that raise.
You mentioned, Lon, that World Series Europe will be in Berlin next year. World Series APAC was just in Australia. George Danzer clinched the World Series Player of the Year. By the way, he's the first to make a scarf work at a table, so he's a trailblazer style-wise. I love the guy. He won his third bracelet of the year, a 3-bracelet win in 1 year. It's very hard to do. Our own Phil Hellmuth did it 21 years ago, but congratulations to George Danzer, 3 bracelets, World Series Player of the Year.
It was not an easy battle. It went all the way down into the southern hemisphere of Melbourne. And he and Brandon Jack Harris traded the lead, I think, 3 times once they got down to that 10-bracelet event. But it was Danzer who won the bracelet down there and secured that Player of the Year. That was fun to watch. Jack 9 for Jacobson, a raise to $2.7 million.
By the way, some people complain about the, you know, is a bracelet as worth as much when the fields are small, and they were pretty small in Australia. That's an argument someone can make, but just remember that Doral Brunson, when he was winning the main event back-to-back, those were fields of 22 and 34. One of Doral's bracelets, by the way, I've always claimed should be a half a bracelet, Lonnie. He won the mixed doubles with Starla Brody in 1979. Mixed doubles when there were 25 entries. Mixed doubles.
Mixed doubles.
And by the way, if that was a rebuy event, I could have kept firing bullets with a different ex-wife each time. I could have won that thing.
They both flopped top pair. It's Jacobson with the better kicker.
This is a bad spot for Van Hoof. He's flopped top pair.
Check.
To just, you know, a single raise. I mean, he's not going anywhere. And he's pretty dominated in this spot.
Yeah, in suits as well.
Check.
Wow, this is a surprising check back.
King of diamonds now. So is it a point where when we notice something like this, or you notice something like this, is Jacobson, they're still shifting gears? They have to shift gears and change up their play a little bit? Or
yeah, I mean, this is pretty tricky. Now, you know, once Jacobson checks back on the flop, Van Hoof is never going to put him on a 9 or a 6, right? Ever. And so, but what happens is a lot of bad cards can come on the turn where the action can shift now. For instance, the king comes on the turn, right? And so that kind of changes things. But personally, I like to just bet there just because I'm betting a lot of my air hands anyway.
Well, Van Hoof has more than air, but less than solid.
Right. Van Hoof actually thinks he has the best hand right now, given the check back by Jacobson on the flop. So, you know, if a blank comes on the turn, for instance, like a 2 or a 4 or a card, an insignificant card, it does change the dynamic of it, of the hand. So I understand Jacobson's check. I wouldn't do it, but I get it.
Jacobson's 9 is best, as you see, after the 7 of hearts hits the river.
Van Hoof, I think, will bet here. I think he'll go for some value. I think that he thinks his hand is best. The only card he's really worried about is a king. And look, if your opponent hit a king, so be it. He's also not check folding. If he checks and his opponent bets, he's probably going to call. So getting back to, if you're going to call, you might as well bet.
7 million.
Bet 7
That's
million.
a bet. Half the pot. 7 million.
Yeah, and Jacobson will find a call here. I'm pretty sure he will.
Call.
And there is the call. And that 8 is not good
9.
enough. And Martin Jacobson will take more chips from Van Hoof. The Swede keeps getting stronger, up to 95 million now after that pot against Jort Van Hoof.
And Van Hoof had just worked so hard to go from 52 million to 67 million, and now he's back down to 52 million.
Stevenson just ahead of him barely, 53.1 million. And so now it's Jacobson who's the one that is trying to work the other two and do tinier stacks, just as Van Hoff was trying to do the same last night. He with the monster stack. And you don't want them to combine chips. You want to beat them out of their chips. Have a huge lead, go up against a short stack, heads up, if, of course, at all possible. That's the dream scenario.
3 million.
3 million is the raise on the button from Stevenson with a pocket pair. Pocket sixes.
This would not be a good time for Van Hoff to do one of his 3 bets. Stevenson is never folding. If he gets 3 bet here, he's shoving for sure. Now, if Van Hoff wakes up with a hand, well, that's the name of the game.
And he's still got
Re-raise.
There is the raise.
So, yeah, we'll see a shove here from Stevenson, and Van Hoff will end up folding.
For sure with 40 big blinds, Stevenson would shove here?
Yeah, I mean, he's been 3 bet so many times. He knows by now that Van Hoff did it with 10-3 just a few rounds ago.
Look at this, though. We don't forget about the chip leader.
Well, if Jacobson gets involved, that changes everything for Stevenson. But if Jacobson folds, Stevenson will shove.
Back to Stevenson now.
Pause the tape because I'm just writing down if Jacobson folds, Stevenson will shove. Yeah. And Eterno's usually right.
I'll lay you 3-1.
I don't trust
That's
you.
how sure
Don't do that.
I don't trust him. When he does that, that's like a sucker bet for me. Oh, yeah, I'll take it. And I am a sucker.
I'm trying to give my money away.
I don't trust you.
All in.
Yeah, it looks like it. Mm-hmm. Just ask that. It just sounds like it's going to come out.
He doesn't say much, but when he speaks.
He has a little pre-all-in routine also. His body kind of moves in a certain way.
Reach for chips. Reach for chips.
Yeah, he usually reaches for the chips before he says all in.
No, he doesn't.
I'm all in.
Oh, you're right.
Van Hoff, ace-8 off, and he will give it up.
Congratulations, Antonio. Congratulations, Felix.
Felix Stevenson into second place, getting stronger, 62.7 million. And this is a fantastic race. He was a telemarketer for a few days. He just didn't cut it as a telemarketer. And I don't think I'd want him calling my house, but he said that was 5 days too long as a telemarketer. He's a fun guy when he wants to be.
Yeah, telemarketing, at least it's an indoor job. He does appear to like to be indoors.
All right, well, the break coming up very soon. Kara Scott, along with a couple of Hall of Famers, Daniel Negreanu, Phil Hellmuth. We'll take a look at what happened, and a lot happened in this level. And will Phil Hellmuth ever get to meet President Obama?
I don't like the looks of that. But doesn't Obama have enough on his plate to have Phil Hellmuth come in as a side dish? He's got so much to be concerned with, and now he's got to deal with Hellmuth? Are you kidding me?
President Obama, you're wanting to meet Phil Hellmuth, right? Right?
No comments.
Van Hoff, King 10 against Queen 9, and wow, nothing going right for Van Hoff. Queen's up for Stevenson, and he checks it, and
yeah,
it's a gut shot for Van Hoff.
It's a gut shot, but again, Stevenson just called out of the big blind. The only hands he could really get check raised with here are 2 pair hands, and so I would always bet this flop. He's not going to be happy about it. But look, that's such a dry board. There's a very reasonable chance. There's a chance that Stevenson just calls and continues to allow Van Hoff to keep firing at this. He doesn't want to run him off the hand. He has such a monster here. But it's always scary to do it out of position because you never know what comes. But I think if there's any spot to do it, this would be it.
A lot of people say it. He says, I'm saving my run good till the final table. And the later, the better. And Stevenson is finding some good cards here tonight against the former chip leader.
8 million.
A raise to 8 million by Stevenson.
So Van Hoff is in a tight spot. I mean, he does have the jack for the nuts. He does have the king for the overcard. And when people check raise you in these spots, it's really fishy because they're representing better than a one-pair hand. If Stevenson had a hand like ace-queen, he would have heard about it pre-flop. Wow, good laydown.
That was a very good laydown. And Stevenson with a great flop with his queen nine, and that gets his cheering section, the Vikings, going.
The 24-year-old trying to become the first main event champion from Norway.
And as we mentioned, he is showing that any studying he did about No Limit Hold'em is really paying off. He admitted he didn't know much. He knew enough about the game, but he was not certainly a specialist in No Limit Hold'em tournaments. But this main event for any poker player, whether you're a No Limit player or not, often said it's a tournament you cannot miss for the value that it presents, just in case something exactly like this happens. Ace-9 for Jacobson, and he will take that pot with the ace-9.
Jacobson's first main event was in 2008. It was his first time in Las Vegas. His first couple days in town, he couldn't drink because he wasn't 21 yet. Then he played that main event a couple days after his birthday, and he was knocked out on the third hand of the day. Got into a set over set situation. He thought he was trapping his opponent. He check called the flop and turn, and then when he check raised the river, his opponent went all in. And he had bottom set, his opponent had top set, and he was gone 3 hands in on his third hand of his first main event.
Oh, he stumbled out of the blocks. A year later, though, he had his first World Series cash. A year after that, he had his first World Series final table. And this is his first main event cash. So he learns quickly. Stevenson on the button with a raise with 5-4.
It doesn't usually take this long and fold.
Von Hope now sitting on just a little more than 30 big blinds. Hard to believe.
He does fold to Jacobson now. Our chip leader with 95 million. We'd love to put some distance between himself and second place Norwegian pro Stevenson.
Re-raise to 9 million.
3-bet to 9 million with 8-7 off, which just happens to be the best hand.
Right, but Jacobson obviously picked up on something from Stevenson, and is just going with his read, and that's what you have to do to win these poker tournaments. I just love the way Jacobson has been playing so far today and yesterday leading up to this final 3. Fantastic.
And he does get the fold from Stevenson and 3 million chips from the second place stack. Jacobson working his way towards a 100 million chip stack. He's right at 99 million right now. Some tweets coming through our pipeline. Let's take a look. Mike the Mouth Mattisov, Van Hoof's problem is he puts his sunglasses on today, which took away his intimidation. We were just talking about that. You're right, Mike. Liv Barry loving Martin Jacobson and the stare downs. A lot of the poker pros checking in. Jake Cody, I love his play. Flying home Miami to London, got World Series final table stream up, and mixed emotions on who I want to win for Greg Merson, former world champion. Feel like it changes hour to hour, hand to hand more like lately. Glad those poker pros are watching and paying close attention to who the next world champion will be.
And it'll be our first Swedish champion if it's Jacobson, first Dutch champion if it's Von Hoof, first Norwegian champion if it's Stevenson.
And there is a 7-4 Stevenson against Jacobson, who has King Trey of Hearts.
It's actually a pretty good flop to lead into, especially when you're the chip leader, just because your opponent has missed so often.
Bet 1.2.
$1.2 million from Jacobson.
Doesn't always work out, but theoretically, it's the right play.
A min bet here. That is the size of the big blind, the smallest bet you can make. And just a call here. So some signals being sent back and forth there. Ace of spades falls on the turn. There's no way that will slow either one of them down.
It'll slow.
I don't know if you're a quick learner or you're mocking us.
It'll definitely slow Stevenson down, just because he has a pretty good hand. It can win in a showdown, and so he doesn't really want to play a massive pot. He's very happy to be in position in this pot. Now remember, Jacobson just limped pre-flop, so it's unlikely that he has an ace in his hand. But even with an ace, if Jacobson had an ace and turned an ace here, it's probably more likely that he would check than bet, just because of the 2 10s out there.
Check.
Stevenson checks back. Jack of hearts on the river as we are nearing the end of this level of play.
Jacobson needs one more card because he just picked up a Broadway draw and a flush draw.
Oh, I know you're waiting for that ocean card to come into the game.
I love the ocean card.
When this hand is over, the level will be over, and we will take a break. Kara, Daniel, and Phil will take you through the break with some expert analysis and fun. And it goes to check, check, and with the 7s, it'll be Stevenson taking that pot, the last of level number 40. When we come back, the blinds will be up yet again. It's going to get more expensive to play. Exciting three-handed action for the bracelet, and $10 million continues. The break is next. Stick around.